Welcome to a very special episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast. Your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion, where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. Episode 35. A special episode because we're going to focus on one topic and one topic alone. My last night sitting with Mother Ayahuasca. As difficult as the prior episodes were to script, to record, to put forth, to publish, this was easily the most difficult. It was the most difficult night of my ayahuasca journey, of sitting with Mother Ayahuasca, and I can be frank about it, it was the most difficult night of my life, which you will soon discover. No other night truly encompassed the term, I got what I needed, not what I wanted, like the last night sitting with Mother Ayahuasca. Although difficult, I wanted to present this for both your enlightenment, dear listener, and for posterity's sake. I hope I can listen to this episode in years to come, reflect on where I was, and how far I've come. Maybe this can be a benchmark for all of my listeners. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, and let's get it underway.
Act 1. My final evening with Mother Ayahuasca.
I woke up after the third night with Mother Ayahuasca. I did not feel well. Have you ever exercised to the point where afterwards, whether it be working out, running, swimming, something that had both a physical element and an endurance element, afterwards you felt sick? You had just exercised, you had just challenged yourself, but you did so to such an extent, to such an extreme, that afterwards you actually felt sick. That, dear listener, that is how I felt when I woke up after my third night with Mother Ayahuasca. Did not feel well. Felt beat up, felt like I had exercised way too hard, way too vigorously, and actually felt this level of sickness. Consistent with my routine, though, I got up, went and got myself one of these fresh-made, fresh-pressed juices, chugged it down, jumped into the saltwater pool, and I did feel a little better. But I didn't feel much better as I had on the previous mornings. As the day progressed, I realized I was likely not going to feel but so much better. I was not likely to feel energized, enthusiastic, optimistic. At the resort, Rhythmia, they have a place where you can get massages. I had a massage scheduled for the next evening. I moved it up. Smartest decision I ever made. Very relaxing. Went through a Swedish massage. Got my mind right, thought everything's going to be fine. The evening progresses, we finally get into the Maloka, the hall where we're going to have this ceremony, and it was then that the weight of everything hit me. For the first time since I had chosen to engage in this process, to go to Costa Rica, to stay at this resort, to participate in these ayahuasca ceremonies, I had the twinge of regret. I began to debate in my head, are you really going to go through this again? Not the most harmonious frame of mind to be in anticipation of this ayahuasca ceremony. Now let's talk about this ayahuasca ceremony. This is the fourth night, and each night had a different theme. This theme was not a masculine theme or a feminine theme. This evening, there was a different ayahuasca that was being presented. And at the resort, we had been educated as to the nature of this root, this form of ayahuasca. The Spanish name, and I'll very likely say this wrong, is yahe. I believe it is spelled Y-A-G-E, yahe. Now, we are all adults. The shaman are not coy about the nature of what we are going to experience. Very frankly, explain to us that yahe is a stronger version of the ayahuasca root. in my own words, Yahe is the anvil. Yahe's the hard hitter. As much as one might think they experienced sitting with Mother Ayahuasca, these different forms of ayahuasca, one is inclined to believe that they've absorbed very powerful medicines. Yahe from Colombia is the hard hitter, is the anvil. As much as any of us were inclined to believe we had already run the gauntlet, Yahe is truly a different gauntlet. To illustrate my mental state, my level of reluctance, while this ceremony was going on, there is a quite intricate blessing of the ayahuasca, the blessing of the shaman. It's a very interesting ceremony. It's a beautiful ceremony. I did not watch, for the first time, much of that ceremony on the fourth night. I was actually lying down. I was trying to mentally prepare myself. Frankly, I believe now in retrospect, I was trying to rest, if not take a quick nap, so that I would be more physically, if not mentally prepared for one Yahe. As the group was called up to present their cup for the Yahe, I sat on my bed. I then laid back down, deciding I'm going to wait. I'm going to be one of the last people to take Mother Ayahuasca in this form, postponing the inevitable, knowing that I was very well going to do it, that I wasn't going to not do it. This was the state of mind that I was in leading into the fourth night, leading into this ceremony. Quick recap, quick refresher. As I explained in the other segments, the other podcasts, documenting my journey with Mother Ayahuasca, you go into these ceremonies. You were provided a number of intentions. You were instructed about how to create these intentions if, in fact, you don't want to use the intentions that are provided to you by the staff, by the shamans. For my part, I had heard someone offer an intention for those that had felt like they had made so much progress already. Where do you go when you have seen who you have become? Where do you go when you merge your soul at all costs? Where do you go when you have healed your heart? The intention offered was, help me forgive the unforgivable. Help me forgive the unforgivable. I will not go into much detail. I will obviously not offer names, but many of the people that I had journeyed with, many of the people in this group had volunteered, had gone through some terrible, terrible experiences in their life. Things by which one would assume are unforgivable. How would you get past that? How would you get over it? How would you forgive the person who did that to you? So your intention, or the intention that was being offered, was, okay, you had reached this point in your journey. Ask Mother Ayahuasca, how do I forgive? How can I forgive the unforgivable? The offering progresses, the line dwindles. It's my time to stand up. It's my time to actually go and get my first cup of Yahe. I do so. I offer my intention to the shaman and to the ayahuasca itself. Help me forgive the unforgivable. I drink the cup. I go and I sit back down on my bed. On every other journey, as I've explained in these other podcasts, as you begin to sit with Mother Ayahuasca, you lose track of time. You don't have a very good sense of the progression of time. This evening, for me in particular, it was different. I recognized very quickly, Yahe's the anvil. Yahe's the hard hitter. I felt like immediately tripping my balls off. And I mean tripping my balls off in an escalated way that I had not yet reached on the other 3 nights. I recall specifically that people were still milling about in the Maloka, that nothing had settled, that some people had already gone back up to the shaman, perhaps in the same mindset, in the same vibration that I was, not yet having their first cup of yahe, of ayahuasca. They had the same reluctance that I did and were waiting for the line to not dwindle, but to be gone, for them to be able to approach the shaman and perhaps have a more personal interaction prior to taking the ayahuasca. This is at least what I felt or I observed was going on in that moment, because I was tripping my balls off. Because this hit me so hard so fast, I was immediately put back on my heels. I was not in a confident, in an optimistic frame of mind. It was challenging, but I think that's a tame way of framing it, of putting it. I was freaking out. I felt myself start freaking out. Immediately, I went into my breath. I've got to stay in my breath and become super present. This I was able to do. Unfortunately, that had its limitations, and I began to sweat. Again, quick recap. If there's a mathematical equation of ayahuasca, ayahuasca equals purge. You are going to purge in some capacity. I, for my part, did not vomit. It came out the other way. But, as has been discussed in prior podcasts, purging is not limited to defecation or vomiting. Some people begin crying, uncontrollably crying. Some people begin laughing, uncontrollably laughing. Some people might actually sweat, and I mean sweat. I began to sweat, and I mean sweat. I lied down on my bed, and I began to sweat. I began to sweat so hard that I soon realized that I was lying in a pool of sweat on this single wide bed, on this very thin mattress. I had sweat straight into it. It was no longer a comfortable environment. I had to get up. I had to get out of there. It was that uncomfortable. I thought, I'll go outside, I'll cool off, I'll be able to come back inside, lie back down. Side note, yes, I was in Costa Rica, a highly tropical climate, in the jungle. This was not a well thought out plan. But it was the plan nonetheless. I went outside, and lo and behold, because we're in a highly tropical climate, because we're in the jungle, I did not cool down. I continued to sweat, and I continued in what I felt like was an escalating trip. I felt like not only was I tripping my balls off, but it was escalating to a higher degree, a higher level with every breath that I took. Having failed in the let's go outside and cool off plan, I did go back inside and I lied back down on that sweat-soaked bed. Here, I had lost all concept of time because when I came to, when I felt like I was present, I had one of the shaman, a Sha woman, to be clear, fanning me because she recognized how badly I was sweating in the midst of 45 other people lying in this maloka during this ceremony. Another recap. Recall, dear listener, that you cannot drink or eat anything after you have ingested ayahuasca. So when you are sweating to the point that I was sweating, where you were probably losing many of the necessary fluids, particularly electrolytes, you would love to have some water. One of the things that I actually wrote down in my journal, and we're going to get to all of the things that I wrote down, but one of the things that I wrote down in my journal on this evening is the desperation for water, how precious water really is. When you need a drink of water and you can't take one, it is one of the most desperate feelings you will ever experience. I got up out of that bed in that state of mind and went back outside, and something started to happen in that desperation. I knew that I couldn't drink any water. I recognized how hard I was sweating. I had this feeling I was dying. I'm dying. This is what it feels like to die. I went right back into this mode, into this vibration of freaking out, because this was how it feels to die. I'm dying. As I am thinking this, as I am realizing this to the extent that I'm actually realizing something, I can't explain it, but I started to trip even harder. I almost felt like a part of me, my soul, my essence, wanted to leave my body, and I was not letting it happen. I don't know how long this went on for. Again, no concept of time. But I actually approached one of the shaman in this state, and I said, I think I'm losing it. I think I'm dying. I need you to bring me back. I specifically said this to the man. He looked at me, didn't miss a beat, said, go sit down over here. Took me to a place outside, sat me down, went through this ceremony with me to try to help calm me down, to try to help identify where I was in my journey, this vibration that I was in. And he said something very strange to me. He said, you need to sit with your ancestors. You need to ask them for help to make it through this journey. Now, as I have said in prior podcasts, as you have heard in many of my pithy diatribes on social issues, on sports, on politics, I am not much of a superstitious person, and it took me aback that I had to, quote unquote, sit with my ancestors and ask them for help to make it through this journey. But given the way I felt, and again, I was dying. I was in this vibration of death. I actually at one point thought this must be what people feel like right before they actually die. This level of pain, this level of suffering, but also this tripping, this actual vibration where it feels like your soul is about to leave your body, your essence about to leave your body. So I'm not in a position where I'm going to question any advice. If the direction is go sit with ancestors, ask them for help, I'm going to sit with the ancestors, I'm going to ask them for help. That is precisely what I did. And what happened? Immediately, I felt this weight on my shoulders. I felt like there was 1,000 years of pain, of suffering, of disappointment, of anger, of jealousy, of shame, all flowing through my blood. So what did I have? What resources did I have? I asked, I need your help. And it was just a simple breathe. Just breathe. I can't recall if I heard it or if I felt it or if I just knew it. It was breathe. And I wasn't just breathing. I was taking in extremely deep breaths. I was expelling deep breath. Couldn't give you a time. Couldn't tell you how long this went on. But I felt this anger, this pain, suffering, disappointment, shame, jealousy. I felt it dissipate as I breathed in deeply and breathed out deeply. I actually began to feel better. I felt like I was helping 1,000 years of ancestral lineage expel all of these negative emotions that had been felt, that had occurred over these lifetimes. Once I began to feel better, I felt accomplished, and I thought to myself, let's go and lie down. Went back to the sweat-soaked bed. That wasn't going to do. They had some extra mattresses in one part of this building, this Maloka. I went and I got a fresh mattress, and I put it outside. I arranged it. It was in a nice, quiet little area. I went and I laid down. Time for me to give myself the proverbial pat on the back. I need some rest. Couldn't tell you how long it was because I have no concept of time. I'm still tripping my balls off. I didn't have but maybe 2 or 3 winks of rest before I felt it all come back. I was sweating. I felt this vibration of death, that I was dying. It was escalating. It wasn't descending. It was escalating. I couldn't just lay there. I had to get up. I was compelled to get up. Now, by way of some of the incidents that I can recall happening, I was up and pacing for quite some time. I saw other people who were in the ceremony come out of the building in their own journey, walking around on their own accord, and walk around for what I felt like was a considerable amount of time and go back in. I witnessed this happen with several people. I never went back in. I had not stopped pacing around. I had not stopped trying to reconcile where I was in this journey. The pain, this feeling of death, it got so bad. It escalated to such a point. It was different from what I had felt prior to. Note, I reached out to a shaman in that state. It was so bad. It had escalated in a point prior to what I had felt before that I did not know what I was going to do. I actually had in my head, will this ever end? I don't know the source. I don't know the origin. I just know that it happened. A voice in my head that said, you're going to have to kill yourself to stop this. Let me repeat. You're going to have to kill yourself to stop this. If you want to stop dying, you're just going to have to kill yourself in this plane of existence. Oh, that didn't go over well. Now I really start to freak out because I don't know where that came from, but when I heard it, when I began to debate it, it made sense. If you want to stop dying, you're going to have to kill yourself in this plane of existence. So here I am, outside of this Maloka, this building in the middle of Costa Rica, tripping my balls off, sweating like I had just run the Boston Marathon. And I can now identify with any of these homeless people walking around the block, blathering on incoherently. I was that guy. Although I don't think I was blathering incoherently, spoiler alert, but I began to openly debate with myself whether or not I was going to kill myself. In this fervor, in this frenzy, one of the shaman, happened to be a woman, noticed that I was not in a good place. I can state without equivocation that she was a miracle. She saved my life. She came to me at the precise, perfect moment. She asked me what was going on, and I was very frank with her. I think I'm getting called to kill myself. Took me over to an area of the building, sat me down, said, I'm going to be right back. Came back. She had many of the implements that the shaman have. They have these feathers. They have these oils that they rub on you. She goes to work. When she completes this process, she puts her hands on me. Very calm, very gentle. And then she says, explain to me what's going on. I do explain. She still got her hands on me. And she says, your ego is dying. This is the death of your ego. And your ego does not want to relent. Your ego does not want to relinquish its place in your life. In what I now understand was exposition to assure me, to educate me, to enlighten me. This woman explained that many people journey for this specific opportunity, that I was very lucky. This was a very exciting time for me. The death of one's ego. For my part, I countered, I don't find this exciting at all. Let me tell you what's exciting. The New York Metropolitans winning 95 games and going to the World Series. That's exciting. Hey, look, I got 5 of the 6 Powerball numbers right. That's $1 million. That's exciting. Sweating my balls off in a Costa Rican jungle, high on ayahuasca, thinking that I'm going to die and that the only way I can stop dying is killing myself. Well, I don't know if I'd qualify that as exciting. She assured me it was exciting nonetheless. And what was the issue? The issue was my resistance. My ego was dying. Mother Ayahuasca wasn't going to take no for an answer. I was resisting. My ego was resisting. And therefore, I was going through one of the worst experiences of my entire life. It was very likely my ego that was saying, I'm not going to be sacrificed. If I go, you go. You're going to kill yourself. So I had to resign myself to the fact that I have to lower my resistance and let my ego die. I went back to the little makeshift area that I had created for myself, and I lied down and I basically professed to the Creator, to my superconscious self, I am available, I am willing, I do not want to offer any more resistance, I'll let my ego die. A curious feeling came over me. It hit me that I had purged for hours by sweating, but I had not yet purged in any capacity other than that. I had not yet vomited, although I did not vomit for the entire trip, spoiler alert, and I had not yet defecated. And the urge to defecate hit me. And it hit me quickly, and just like the anvil that Yahweh was, the urge to defecate hit me like that anvil. As I sat on the porcelain throne, providing my offerings, I slowly felt myself coming down. I slowly felt myself calming down. And a little voice in the back of my head goes off, you were really going to kill yourself, weren't you? You legitimately debated killing yourself. And sitting there, now becoming more lucid, now becoming more aware, I realized, yes, that's the God's honest truth. I seriously debated this. It was a legitimate consideration. Do you forgive yourself? You tricky mother ayahuasca, you. Do I forgive myself? Yes. Yes, I do. I forgive myself for offering all the resistance. I forgive myself for the lack of trust. I forgive myself for wanting a solution, an easy way out, rather than having faith in the journey. Yes, I forgive myself. Then you can forgive the unforgivable, because it is in these emotions, it is in these vibrations, it is in these moments that people do the things that they do. Holy shit. The anger, the fear, the isolation, the guilt, the shame, these layers of ego that provide this resistance, that provide this separation. People are rarely acting with true intent, with true malice. You may be, dear listener, the object of these actions by other people, motivated by these negative emotions, but the fact of the matter is, it has nothing to do with you. The little light in my head was on, and it wasn't coming off. I felt a sense of peace and serenity, and I felt tired. I felt like I could go and sleep. Now, I went back to the bed. This cycle, lying down, almost falling asleep, feeling the urge, I'll just put it to you that way, feeling the urge to get up and go back to the porcelain throne. This cycle went on several iterations. I don't know how long that progressed, but by the time I no longer felt those urges, I was ready to sleep, and I did so. But to give you an idea of where I was at in my journey and how long it took, when I was able to close my eyes, I could see the breach of light from the sun rising. I could probably go on to the Google machine and find out on that day what time the sun rose, but it had to be in the 5 a.m. range. I don't know how long I slept, but it couldn't have been that long. I actually leaned forward from my prone position sleeping and noted that the sun had not yet fully risen over the horizon. I was watching the sun rise. Once completed, I pulled out my notebook and furiously began scribbling notes. To recap, my tripping balls script is not great. Now, many of these notes are just for me, but the gist of it is very simple. You don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to control everything. Enjoy the process. Focus on the present, and don't worry about the outcome. I can tell you that sitting here right now recording this podcast, that has been the hardest lesson to integrate into me coming back to what I would call the world, my life. You don't have to control everything. You don't have to worry about the outcome. Just enjoy the process. Easier said than done, but like anything else, it is something that we can all accomplish. I'll read you the last thing that I wrote because it is for me quite prophetic, and it is for me another of the most difficult things that I'm integrating into what I'll call this life. Everyone just wants to be loved. Look at any person. Look at that person and see a child seeking love. A person that wants to feel love from others. That wants to love and be loved. That's the last thing I wrote in this notebook. That's it. That's pretty much the secret to life. Whether a scientist, a biologist, a theologian, it doesn't matter. Yes, we are here to procreate. We are here to propagate, to promote the species, if you will. But in service of what? Pop culture? Consumerism? You have children. What do you want to teach them? Love. You have parents. What do you want from them? Love. You have this family. What do you want to give to them? Love. We do not, and I am particularly guilty of as much, we do not love one another. I come back home, I'm subjected to as much pop culture and consumerism and electronic dance music than any three of you combined. So it's very easy for me to get out of the vibration of love. But as I look at that 26-year-old girl in a Hermes belt and a Louis Vuitton purse, bouncing up and down to the EDM, I reflect, what does she really want? What she really wants is to be loved. What she really wants is to feel love. What she really wants is to give love. So maybe I'm in the perfect place. Maybe that's why I'm here, and maybe that's why I went through what I went through, because this is all a test of whether or not, as someone who considers himself to be enlightened, considers himself to have been provided a crash course in wisdom, can I demonstrate as much in action? I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I'm going to enjoy the process. This is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast.